what, like, what steps can they take, today, for lack of a better way to put it, that is going to help them to start, um, again, dancing with their ADHD?
Yeah, so the way I break it down and the work I do in my programs is in three different main categories. One is clarity,
Yep.
having a clear sense of what's your vision, where are you going, your purpose, your strengths, your weaknesses, self-awareness, right? And what kind of business you're trying to build and why, and have that thought out. Then the next phase would be about, okay, if I, a lot of people skip that and they're focusing on executing or planning, and they haven't really locked into, this is the kind of business I want to build and I've
Mhm.
thought it through and it's aligned with my skills and my strengths and it's something I can continue doing. So that's always first. And then planning and prioritization is, okay, so now if that's the vision and that's my goal, what does that look like in a year? How do I backtrack? What does that look like in 90 days? What really matters in the next 90 days? What's going to move the needle? What are the things that I absolutely must prioritize? So that's phase two, which a whole bunch in there and not so easy. But then once you're clear on that, okay, I know what I need to do this week. I know why it's important and I know where that's taking me in 90 days. Okay, now you have to actually do those things. So then you have to actually carve out time, maybe time block, control your schedule, manage your energy, follow through on the things you've decided. So each step has so
Yeah.
many landmines for us to get lost in that there's a really high failure rate and a lot of challenges with ADHD entrepreneurship. And yet we're the high, we have a very high affinity and we tend to navigate to entrepreneurship and then we struggle. So
Hmm.
there's this interesting disconnect or challenge that we're facing. But when addressed and we learn these skills that we never learned when we were younger,
Yeah.
it makes it feasible.
I mean, a lot of what you're saying, to me also feels like it boils down to, I don't want to call it time management, oversimplify it, but there is a big piece of that in my experience, again, a lot of people struggle with, regardless of ADHD or not. But if I'm, reading into this a little bit more myself, I think the key is for individuals that are struggling with ADHD, which again, as you showed by the numbers initially, highly, or a lot of entrepreneurs tend to lean that way. And I think it makes sense. It's, the mind can be going all these different ways. You see these things that are exciting, you start pursuing the thing that's exciting, but the challenge sometimes is then you might get distracted by the other exciting thing. So this time management, for lack of a better way to put it, I know I'm over,
Yeah.
some of it. It's, if those individuals can't figure that out, then they have a higher likelihood that they're going to find themselves on to the next thing without ever actually built what they wanted to build. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, in many ways, because essentially we're only as successful as in any endeavor what we choose to dedicate our
Yeah.
time and energy to, right?
Yeah.
And that is the only way to create any kind of output or tangible anything, right? So yeah, it all would boil down to what are you choosing to spend your time on and how effective are you
Right.
in that time?
So now when you mentioned the, time blocking, getting down to that, is that similar concept to when you've mentioned, the idea of compartmentalizing, like, a chef in a kitchen does?
Yeah, so I've actually been using an analogy lately a lot as uh the way when you go to a busy restaurant, a chef is in the kitchen cooking. The chef is not, when you order the item, prepping and cutting the mushrooms and going and getting, a sauce and going and, there's been a day of effort. There's been a lot of things prepared in advance. There's a lot of
Hmm.
ingredients that are ready to go. The menu has been thought out,
Yeah.
right? So that all happens separately. But in the moment he's cooking, can be more creative and quick with the ingredients. So going back to what you're saying about compartmentalizing it, it's what does that look like for us entrepreneurs? How do we separate the buying of the vegetables with the cutting of the vegetables, with the preparing of the sauce, with the cooking of the dish? And what I just described is a lot of executive functioning. It's a lot of logistics, planning,
Hmm.
structuring, sequencing. And those things don't necessarily come naturally to us in our brain. I've heard a lot of my clients, and I can identify this with this. It almost sometimes feels like your brain hurts when you think or try to think about certain things,
Yeah.
and it's hard to just like, what does that mean? Not like a headache. It's like gears stuck,
Hmm.
and that's the feeling we get a lot, and it's hard to describe. But that's because there's something that's not a muscle that's not as developed.